This is no longer speculation. On January 3, 2026, U.S. Special Forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife during a large-scale military operation in Caracas. They were flown to the United States and are now being held in federal custody in New York, where they will face narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and weapons charges. This marks one of the most extraordinary uses of U.S. military power against a sitting foreign leader in modern history. Tonight, we break down why the U.S. says this arrest was legal, why critics say it violated U.S. and international law, what this means for global stability, risks to U.S. citizens, and what happens next for Venezuela and the United States. The Trump administration argues this was not a war, but an arrest operation. Maduro has been indicted in U.S. federal court since 2020, accused of leading a narco-terrorist organization, coordinating with designated terrorist groups, flooding the U.S. with cocaine, using state power to protect drug trafficking networks. The administration does not recognize Maduro as Venezuela's legitimate president, citing disputed elections and international condemnation. Under that reasoning, Maduro is treated as an indicted fugitive, not as a protected head of state. Officials compare the operation to the U.S. capture of Manuel Noriega in Panama in 1989, counterterrorism raids targeting indicted individuals abroad. How the operation happened. According to U.S. officials, the mission, Operation Absolute Resolve, involved over 150 aircraft. Venezuela's air defenses were disabled. Delta Force conducted the ground capture. FBI and DOJ personnel were embedded for arrest processing. Maduro and his wife were captured at a fortified military complex in Caracas and transferred to a U.S. warship before being flown to New York. The administration insists no U.S. service members were killed. The mission was limited and precise. The goal was capture, not occupation. However, civilian casualties were reported, including Cuban nationals, raising serious international concerns. Legal justifications versus legal challenges. Administration's legal argument. The White House and DOJ argue this was a law enforcement action, supported by existing indictments, not subject to congressional pre-authorization. Similar to prior counterterrorism arrests abroad, critics counter-arguments. Members of Congress from both parties dispute this. No congressional authorization for military force. Possible violations of the War Powers Resolution. Potential breaches of international law and sovereignty. Dangerous precedent for global snatch-and-grab operations. Several lawmakers warn, if the U.S. claims this authority, China or Russia could justify similar actions elsewhere. Global reaction has been swift and divided. Support Israel publicly praised the operation. Venezuelan opposition leaders celebrated Maduro's removal. Some regional allies expressed cautious approval, condemnation. China, Russia, Iran, Cuba, North Korea, and others condemned the arrest. The United Nations Secretary General called it a dangerous escalation. An emergency UN Security Council meeting is underway. Even close U.S. allies warned that international law and sovereignty must be respected. This could destabilize global norms. This operation carries real risks for Americans. As of now, at least 4 Americans remain detained in Venezuela. The State Department has ordered U.S. citizens to shelter in place. Flights over Venezuela were temporarily suspended. Embassy access remains extremely limited. There is a serious risk of retaliatory detentions, travel disruptions, prolonged instability affecting Americans abroad. What happens next? For Maduro, he will appear in federal court in New York, likely held under high security conditions, possible decades-long prison sentence if convicted. For Venezuela, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has been named interim leader. The U.S. says it will not directly govern, but Trump has said the U.S. will run Venezuela temporarily. Oil infrastructure and sanctions enforcement are central to next steps. Elections are being discussed. but no clear timeline exists. For the U.S. Congress is preparing war powers. Votes' legal challenges may reach federal courts. The precedent set here will shape future U.S. foreign policy for decades. This moment will be debated for years. Supporters call it justice accountability, a decisive stand against narco-terrorism. Critics call it unlawful reckless, a dangerous precedent for global instability. What is clear is this: the rules governing power, sovereignty, and intervention are changing, and the consequences will not be limited to Venezuela.